Hello world, I'm a shorter than average girl from down under, and today we're going to do our second character analysis from our Undercity trio, Vi's analysis.
Who the hell are you?
But given that Vi has the most screen time on the show, and I'm counting Jinx and AU Powder separately in this calculation, there is a lot to say about her. So I'll be splitting her analysis into two parts. The first focusing on the structures in Vi's life which develop her thinking and approach to the world. And then in part two, understanding how those structures doomed Vi, and so she needed Jinx to free her from that curse. So let's start with part one, Vi. Of all the stories in Arcane, Vi's is the one that's the most ordinary. Now, before you cancel me, let me explain. All of Arcane's characters are extremes in the respective idea they represent. So Jinx is the extreme of low self-esteem, and Victor is the extreme of high self-esteem. Mel is the extreme of feeling inferior and masking it, whilst Cait is the extreme of feeling superior and rebelling to show it. And Bess is the extreme of dominance, Silco of manipulation, Echo of selflessness, Savika of loyalty, Isha of innocence, and the list continues for the rest of the cast. They're almost caricatures of the concepts they embody, but they are written so well that they don't feel like caricatures. Now, Vi matches with Jace from our Pilty trio, who himself represents idealism. So, Vi, by definition, has to be the most down-to-earth and realistic character on the show, later developing an appetite for optimism and hope while Jace loses it. Vi's character also serves as the glue of the show, in contrast to Jace, who constantly causes changes to the status quo, whether that's intentional or unintentional. Vi is the only character in our main cast who has an interaction with every other character. Like, Caitlyn and Victor never meet on screen, though Cait knows of Victor through Jace. Jinx, Jace, and Mel never meet, despite her actions being consequential on their life and story arcs. Vi meets all the other major characters, the minor side characters, and the previous generation. The exception is Heimerdinger, but he does know of her in the alternate universe, so that kind of still counts. Her interactions with each character allow them to showcase the best or worst of themselves. She reveals their strengths and weaknesses, making her the ultimate sidekick on the show, but really nothing on her own. All the makings of a leader, but without a defined cause to follow. Just trying to maintain the status quo. Why? Because she can't let go of the past. And for that reason, her story is essentially the foundation the entire show is built on. So, let's talk Vi's story. Vi is the eldest of Felicia and Connell's children, two miners in the Fishers who fell in love. Both, but Felicia in particular, believed in Zorn's independence from the oppressive governing body across the river. So, with her besties Vander and Silco, they heralded a revolution. Having a child under these circumstances was an afterthought, but given that it was going to happen, Felicia was going to do what she can to give this child a good chance at life, with the help of the other three men in her life. Despite being born into a world of poverty, injustice, and constant survival, Vi was loved. Being the first child of the revolution, Vi represented the future for all its members. She was their goal, their hope. Now, of course, the show highlights extensively Vi's relationship with Vander and Felicia. Connell makes a few cameos, but is never really given a major role, despite the fact that Vi gets all her looks from her dad. But we never see Silco, and given that he was close to Felicia, and there during the announcement scene, we can arrive at two conclusions. Either that Silco wasn't as doting on Vi as Vander or her parents were, so she didn't really have any memories of him, or that Vi had purposely erased Silco from her childhood memories due to the betrayal that she felt from him later on. I mean, Silco knew enough about Vi for the audience to conclude that they weren't strangers. But of course, most of his knowledge of Vi could have come from Jinx, rather than being a constant presence in her childhood. The second theory adds an additional layer of complexity to the hate and acceptance that Vi and Silco had for one another. Season 2 made me question all the conclusions I had made about Silco and Vi's relationship. Initially, I had assumed that Silco's complex feelings for Vander made him keep tabs on him, so he knew that Vi and Powder were sisters. But Vi had never really met Silco before, with the first time ever hearing about him being from episode 3. Chills. Season 1 then pitches Silco and Vi against one another for control over Jinx, with the hate being based on Vander's death and legacy. There are moments here and there where there is momentary admiration and understanding for their shared love for Vander and Jinx, but it's very short-lived and inconsequential. However, Season 2 changes it all. For some, this creates plot holes, raises questions about the distant nature of Vi and Silco's enemy line, but for others, it added clarity to Vi's continuous hate for Silco and her inability to let go of those feelings, despite Vander not feeling negatively about Silco at all. It was personal.
I've regretted that we've never had the opportunity to speak.
Vi was the combination of Vander and Felicia, Silco's past, so she too needed to face the same fate as Vander for Zorn to move into a new era of the revolution, one of fear.
I just need to scare them.
Silco was a ghost from Vi's past, that after 7 years of processing the trauma of episode 3, she had come to wholeheartedly believe that he was a traitor, just like Silvika, Huck, and Jinx. Now, this all seems like rambling, but it highlights a really interesting thing about Vi's character, which shapes her entire story one way or another. The way she forms relationships with different types of authority. A symptom, if you will, of the non-clinical concept of eldest child syndrome. Now, as an eldest child myself, I can confirm that the general depiction of eldest child syndrome can be true, but it's an oversimplification of the psychology associated with the impact of birth order on a child's development and further their adult personality, including their love language and attachment style. The oversimplification comes from excluding the conditions of the adult around the eldest child and how changed environments can impact the process as well, both of which are tumultuous in Vi's childhood and adult life. But generally speaking, eldest child syndrome is a result of the unique relationship between the parents and their first child changing when another child enters the picture. This occurs regardless of the age gap between siblings, not because parents necessarily favor one child over the other or have preferential treatment, but purely as a consequence of the eldest child being the parents' first experience at being parents. I mean, no matter how much a person prepares themselves, being a parent changes you. And as you're navigating that for the first time, your identity is being shaped around this child. So you develop a unique relationship with them. On the other hand, the child is learning to navigate themselves through the parents. Their lens to the world is through these adults, so they tend to be attuned to their parents' emotions. When a sibling enters the picture, the parents, though in some aspects experienced, still undergo changes, particularly when it comes to routine and energy exerted for the eldest. This change is picked up by the eldest child. And so they attune themselves to their parents, either developing this competitive nature for their parents' love or attention, or a sense of responsibility to shoulder some of their parents' duties towards their sibling or siblings to give their parents a bit more time and energy to spend on them. Now, which of these the eldest child develops is a response to the changes in the adults in their life. This may be different with each pregnancy or major milestone these adults go through, meaning that a child can develop both a competitive and a responsible nature. Although another child in the birthing order can also develop these traits, it's predominantly associated with the eldest, because other kids will also be attuned to any of their siblings that is elder than them. And so their attuning becomes dependent on a mixture of their parents and their elder siblings, with the combination and mix being dependent on the elder siblings' needs and the weight of that responsibility. The more capable that the elder is or are, the less need for another sibling to shoulder responsibility, increasing their degree of freedom and expression. In turn, the less stresses that are on the parents, the higher the degree of freedom for the eldest child as well. Of course, this doesn't take into account any parental demands or restrictions, but we're only talking about the unconscious development of the family dynamic. Adding in conscious systems of order and authority increases the complexity of the relationships, which is what makes each individual's experience with their parents unique. When it comes to Vi, Powder's birth allows her to develop a keen sense of responsibility for her, and this is likely due to the fact that both her parents needed to work for them to survive. She would look after Powder whilst they were gone, and when they come back, she gets to be a child again. Vi looked up to the adults in her life, particularly Felicia and Vander, who we see in most of her memories. Their investment in her capabilities to protect and nurture gave her the drive to pursue boxing and to mother Powder without feeling disgusted by the responsibility or despising her younger sister. This wasn't a task which was ordered from her, but something that she assigned herself out of admiration for the adults in her life. Copying them gave her purpose and pride. And this is how children experiment with interests, then developing their aspirations. They imitate the things that resonate with them in the adult world. And when adults take the time to encourage, practice, and develop these with the child, their success rate exponentially increases, and they have a good chance of excelling at it in adulthood if they choose to pursue it. Circumstances changed for Vi on the fateful day of Ash, where she and Powder find themselves orphans. This moment changes Vi. The innocence of her childhood was stripped away. The source of her security, appreciation, and love gone. And the things that were once ways to connect with the people she loved, to help them, to imitate them, to spend time with them, became necessary chores for her and her sister to survive. She didn't have a choice to pursue them into adulthood anymore. She needed to. And so, in the span of a few minutes, Vi became an adult, teaching, leading, and mothering the children of Zorn. Most importantly to her, her sister. She developed street smarts, could calculate and plan what needs to be done to survive, allocate roles and responsibilities equal to each person's capability. The kids respected her for that. She gave them the time of day to get to know each of their strengths, teaching them what she can, and being unafraid to call on their skills. Vi became Felicia's and
Vander's prodigy.
a formidable force. At the same time, she knew who to blame for taking her childhood away. And the more adulting she did, the more she recognized how difficult these responsibilities are to meet because of the oppression, differential treatment, and environment they were in. The exact same cause her parents died for. In saying all this, Vi still had Vander, so she wasn't soloing this completely, and that's how hard she had it. So just imagine how it would have been for a child who had nobody. Her relationship with Vander did change as a consequence. Why? Well, Vander had never been a parent before. He was a family friend. Making the decision to take Vi and Powder under his wing was a big step. And well, he needed Vi's help in a sense to make it work. He leveraged his relationship with Vi to be able to look after Powder and later Milo and Clagger. Cause like, come on, this is the Hound of the Underworld. He's big, holds authority and respect, making him scary for little kids. But due to the pre-existing relationship with him, Vi wasn't scared. And so she was the only way that children could see his softer side. They look at how easily she can get along with Vander, and it eases their fear of the facade of the scary wolf. Vi and Vander's original teacher-student relationship acted as a bridge in the hierarchical difference between protector and protected. It was a genuine relationship sprouted long before Vander adopts them. Vander did see Vi as his legacy and lineage, to guide her and protect her accordingly, viewing her as his daughter. Vi, on the other hand, feels loved and wanted by Vander, feelings that helped her cope with the loss she felt. But she realizes that no matter what Vander does, there is a power bigger than him stopping her from feeling free. And it was the same power that everyone around her recognized. So, Vi didn't actually view Vander as her father, hence never referring to him by that title, until Jinx does in season 2. And the funny thing is that it surprises her when Jinx refers to him that way. Now, this doesn't come from Vi not treating or feeling that Vander was a father figure in her life, but more from the fact that she's fighting these feelings because she doesn't want to replace her real father. The show highlights Vi as a family person, someone who's drawn to belonging and is loyal to individuals that make her feel like she's in a clique. And that makes sense when you take into account that Vi lost that group and those individuals that built that sense of belonging for her originally when she was very young. Ever since, she wanted to recreate that feeling, build a new family where what she has to give can be appreciated and reciprocated in a grateful and equal manner. But at the same time, she feels guilty of letting go of her parents. So all the new families that she creates aren't replacements of one another, but additions, leading to an expansion of her perceived responsibilities, duties, and loyalties. And this lands her in a lot of trouble later on. But before we move on, I wanted to highlight why an eldest child may feel more equal to their parents rather than beneath them hierarchically. When parents communicate with their children healthily, they come down to their level, speak in terms, and adjust their tone to convey emotions. So the first child will be accommodated to by their parents or the adults in their life, as they come down to their level. When another sibling enters the mix, parents do the same to them, but the eldest child has already surpassed that development milestone. So to them, this type of communication is seen as lesser, one that they too can stoop down to by imitating their parents. A simple act of imitation from a perceived hierarchy can lead to an eldest developing some kind of superiority in either a competitive or parenting way. So yes, when Vi finds herself communicating with Vander more clearly than Powder, Milo, and Clagger, and more than just a protector and protected relationship with him, she becomes a pseudo-parent to all the kids that are afraid of Vander. A communicator for both sides on behalf of the other. She was closer to an equal with Vander than Powder, Milo, or Clagger. So she takes ownership and makes sacrifices on their behalf. And that's also how the others kind of saw it too. Like, this moment so gave the adults a talking kind of vibes. And Vander's one-on-ones with Vi didn't beat the allegations. But the truth of those one-on-ones come from a deeper bond, beyond the superficial family dynamic. Vander saw himself in Vi and was mentoring her away from the hardships and losses he had to deal with in his life. Particularly Vi's sentiment about Topside, a view he long held that lost him everything except for her. The further she acts on those sentiments, the more he fears that day will come, the day he'll lose her. The Day of Ash taught Vander that he wasn't strong enough to let go of the people he loved. His mission was wholeheartedly driven by affection than principle, like Vi. Vi going down the revenge route would break her, and he was right. It's those words that make Vi realize that despite there being a chance of things getting better, the fight for that chance demands sacrifices. Sacrifices we don't always determine. And if we aren't ready to make those sacrifices, the risk of that change may not be worth it. Content with what you have and compromising what could be could bring more peace. And on an individual scale, that could be true, because we each have our own capacities and tolerances, which, if overflown, could have devastating and endless consequences. You see where we're going with this. Powder was all she had of her original family. She knew she couldn't let Powder go, because she still couldn't let her parents go. Now, Vander is on the same boat too, but she knew he could look after himself. She didn't have to worry about losing him. It was Powder that she was worried about. Powder, who didn't really remember or have a strong connection to the good old days. Powder, who didn't have the experience of the joy of being a family. Powder, who couldn't yet do it on her own. She needed more time, and so she thought she could give it to her. Before prison, Vi didn't really reciprocate Powder's need for them to be together. She was capable of doing things on her own and cleaning up her messes. And other than the lack of support for everyone else and not having an adult to really guide her, Vi didn't see a problem with Powder. She was gonna make sure that Powder got there, until it seemed like time was running short.
And I'm gonna bury the lot of you.
She could see Vander was struggling to do this on his own, so she needed to do what she'd learned to, help shoulder some of her father's responsibility. That meant leaving Powder, taking her sister's mother away. But the choice, though difficult, was clear. For Powder to have a future, protection from Topside, and time, as well as Vander being there to keep the underground safe, she needed to control the sacrifice. The symbolic passing of Vi's bunny to Powder is more than just a token for her to remember her by. Bunnies are connected to a particular character on the show, Felicia, and her connection with the girls. It is something inherited from mother to daughter, a symbol of purity, innocence, and pure maternal love. And that's why Isha is also symbolized through a bunny, because Isha was to Jinx what Powder was to Vi. When a guy took the bunny off Vi, post her parents' death, and threw it into the cable lines, she felt powerless in getting it back, waiting for an act of nature to bring it down, just as she felt powerless to avenge her parents' murders in settling that turmoil within her. However, when it came to Powder and Vander, Vi didn't feel powerless. She could do and would do something about it, giving her the stamina, strength, and motivation to reclaim the bunny, not for herself, but for her sister. To make sure she knows that the bad days don't define us. We can't keep hope and fate to make things right. We have to do it ourselves, and also to pass on to her that maternal love and belief. Vander knew that Vi wouldn't defy fate for herself, and quickly figured out that she was planning to say goodbye, and he couldn't lose her, especially not for his sake. Vi truly took after Vander, because when she was on the other foot, he did exactly what she was doing for Powder, gave up his freedom to give them time to grow and protect them. This was a fate unforeseen by Vi. She hadn't considered that she may have to sacrifice Vander, her role model, teacher, protector, and guide. So when she learns that there is a chance that not all is lost, she decides to follow her heart and take the plunge.
We're breaking you out.
Using everything she'd learned, practiced, and mastered to get her new family out of this. It's too bad that fate demanded the ultimate sacrifice. For the second time in her life, Vi loses every member of her family except Powder. But this time, there was no Vander to pick her up. The monkey was gone. And so we get a repeat of Silco and Vander. Both Vander and Vi had led their respective missions, asked for something specific, just to be disobeyed, and then disaster. They do blame Silco and Powder for the death of their loved ones, letting their anger get the better of them. But
Take care of Powder.
a way to connect with her parents and assert hierarchy that eventually turned into a responsibility to desperately hold on to her original family, now turned into a will and legacy. She'd drawn blood. Blood of a loved one. Her blood. Vi quickly realizes what she's done and stops, taking the time to calm down and recoup emotionally. It's just unfortunate that she didn't have the luxury of time in this moment. She realizes that she may lose her sister too. And Marcus comes up from behind and volunteers her as Zorn's sacrifice to Piltover. The same thing that she'd wanted to do an episode before, but without the hope of her sacrifice being worth something to those she loved. Once again, Vi needs to process losing everything that she knew, but this time, there was no familiar elements to rely on. There was no adult from her past life to support her through it and share that experience. There was no familiar location to rebuild on. Stillwater could provide her with no comfort. No healing. However, Vi's a tough cookie. If there was nothing to help her deal with her trauma, she was going to use her strength to create the means to cope on her own. And despite being a depressing song, Goodbye reflects just that. For all the horror and the pain that she saw that night, she will be back. The time away was to prepare for this day. But she wasn't gonna go back to prove a point or take over from Vander. It was to find and protect her sister. The last thing that she had wanted to do before her freedom was taken away. Powder was the thought, the memory, and the drive that kept Vi going in Stillwater. So much so that she inspired her impressive back tattoo. Her tattoo is very similar to the classic wings tattoos, spanning from her lower back to her neck and the back of her arms. Yet they're mechanical, despite Vi being one of the least tech-oriented characters on the show. But her sister is. In fact, Vi believed Powder to be a great inventor and machine fixer. So perhaps the tattoo symbolizes that Vi's freedom is a broken machine. Then there's the smoke detailing. So the only thing that will fix this machine is following that blue smoke from the flare and reuniting with her sister. Powder can fix Vi and free her from the pain and guilt she felt. Only Powder can set Vi free. Chef's kiss foreshadowing. I also know that the tattoo pays homage to her League design, but yeah. 7 years is a long time. Thoughts are Vi's only companions. The more a thought is repeated, the more ingrained it is in one's psyche. The more real that thought feels. For Vi, those thoughts told her Silco was the treacherous enemy and Powder was innocent and helpless. And these are the thoughts that drove her evolution in Stillwater. Unlike the real Silco, Powder, and even Echo, who needed to move on from the events of that night and deal with the quickly changing world, Vi was still stuck in the past. The truth is, Vi had no way of knowing whether Powder was still alive or not, but she held onto the hope of it being true. Now, keeping hope is a very tiresome task, and sometimes it's easier to give up hope and submit to nihilism. So why doesn't she? And how does Vi get the energy to keep hoping, even when she finds out that her sister is alive, but
Powder's gone, Vi.
the answer to this is what makes her very similar to Jace. It's gratitude. Despite her down-to-earth demeanor, Vi really takes favors to heart. Even the smallest things. And this, like Jace, comes back to her upbringing. Poverty taught Vi that she needed to work really hard to get what she wanted. But there was another way too. If people liked you, they can give you things you want. Seeing both sides stops Vi from turning into a selfish brat to exploit people. Rather, she understands that people are going out of their way to prioritize her over themselves, and that priority made her feel loved. Combine that with her trying to ease the responsibility of these adults, it develops her hyper-independent nature and her reciprocity love language, meaning that Vi solely depends on herself, struggles to expose her vulnerability, and gives back to the people the way that they give to her. Physical touch for physical touch. A life for a life. Giving a chance for being given a chance. Opening up to someone who opens up. And so on and so forth. It's important to note that Vi doesn't do this to achieve self-worth, like her sister. But it's more because she's grateful to be loved. Being loved means to belong, to connect, and to be supported. And because that is something she keeps losing and rebuilding, from being an only child to the eldest, from having parents to becoming an orphan, from leading Zorn's future to solitary confinement, being seen as an individual, either as a potential, a role model, or an equal, then deliberately included into that person's life was a privilege for Vi, one she wants to live up to. So Vi holds on to Powder's need for her behind bars, because looking after Powder is her only way of making it up to her parents, Connell, Felicia, and Vander, thanking them for their hard work and sacrifice for her, to continue to belong to their family. But with that gratitude comes two converse feelings born from the inability to reciprocate: guilt and frustration. Like her bestie from the Pilty trio, her inability to help those who she cares about pushes her to make emotionally driven decisions, which don't necessarily lead to the best consequences, either for them or their loved ones, which in turn leads them to use physical exertion to regulate themselves, which again, doesn't always have the best outcome, unless physique was what they were going for.
Hello there.
Just saying. In Stillwater, this drove Vi to start fights with any and all of Silco's cronies, which for once actually had a positive consequence. When a sign of her sister being alive came along, Vi needed to do what she could to take advantage of this opportunity. She sweet-talked her way out of the cells and into the new world. One familiar, yet eerily different. At this point, Vi didn't really give a damn about Caitlin or her mission to find Jinx, but she couldn't really leave her behind, cause it would look sus and she'd probably be hauled back to Stillwater again. This time with a even lesser chance of getting back out. So she has no choice but to drag her along and make her feel like that she's doing her job, no matter how insensitive and ignorant she's being. We will be talking extensively about Vi and Cait's relationship later on, but for now, Vi's primary goal and incentive was to find her sister. That is the only way she can alleviate the burden of guilt and restore her purpose as the family protector. The first place Vi goes to is Jericho's, a familiar and safe place. And Jericho doesn't seem to question the fact that Vi is sitting in his stall after 7 years. Unlike every other character on the show.
Would you believe it? Vi?
From the dead.
Are you real?
You look good for a dead girl.
He simply hints to her that if she wanted to find out what's happening in the past 7 years, she should probably ask Babidi, the heirs of the underground. And it's no surprise that this place is a brothel, the place where all secrets can be spilled. Now, Babidi doesn't exactly give Vi the info she's asked for directly, because she didn't want to hurt her more than she was hurting from seeing the last drop turned into a drug-fueled exclusive club, so she doesn't actually give her any information about Jinx. Instead, she leads her to
Silco's number 2's irregular.
Civica. Vi at this point has no idea who she'll be meeting, just that they're connected somehow to Silco, and we know how Vi deals with Silco's cronies. But when she finds out who it is, oh, things get personal. I know I am going to get so much hate for this, but this is probs my favorite fight in season 1. There's just something about the way that both Vi and Civica fight here that feels so raw and real. Once Vi gets the personal beef off her chest,
You filthy traitor.
she goes back to the task at hand, finding Powder. The reality, however, shocks her, weakened her, a gut punch, literally, which you'll notice is a recurring gesture on the show to point out that she can't fight back. The Powder that Vi needed was an innocent, timid girl worth protecting. And Silco's cronies were treacherous backstabbers that destroyed their home. The two couldn't be one and the same. Her purposes would oppose one another if both were true. So Hope told her that it couldn't, that there was a missing piece of information here that she needed to find or restore so that things can go back to normal, like the good old days. And it is for that reason that she does lose powder. She projects her needs onto her sister, unintentionally gaslighting her by telling her that Jinx isn't her and that
You did what you had to do to survive.
now, this may be coming off as me suggesting that Vi was being selfish in this instance, but it's not that simple. There's a difference between being blood siblings and siblinghood, but the two aren't mutually exclusive either. There is a point in blood sibling life where the group identity of the family no longer represents them fully, and an opportunity opens up where siblings need to navigate each other's individuality, a process where new boundaries are established, the communication changes, and differences between them start to be revealed. This could either strengthen the sibling bond, where they become close friends or bros, or it could push them apart. Tolerance, patience, understanding, and acceptance are the key to this process. It was what Jinx was asking for in Vi, but one Vi couldn't handle due to her attachment to the past and her need for a power difference between them to stay afloat.
Stop talking to me like I'm a child!
The lack of open communication due to assumptions being made, their inability to identify their own needs and traumas to express them effectively, no shared ground due to 7 years of separation, and
I see you never learned patience.
from both sides, I mean, yeah, this all happened in like 6 days. So of course, all these factors put together, it made it such that when they talked, all the wrong things happened. And for that reason, they were pushed apart. So how is Vi going to cope with the purpose of her protecting her family being shattered? Find another. Ooh, there is a lot to dissect with CaitVi. First of all, to address the elephant in the room. No, I do not ship Cait and Vi. Although Cait shows signs of physical attraction to Vi, Vi doesn't show any of those throughout the show. And I know people are gonna do me for this take, but there is a difference between a care and concerned and a crushing gaze. This doesn't exclude her from liking Cait, but indicates something really important about how the two of them develop relationships due to their social class. And because of this difference, an organic way to bridge that healthily would be to get rid of the power imbalance. Instead,
Oh, she's using manipulation tactics right now!
and despite Cait making it up to Vi in season 2, I didn't think that it was enough to cement a long-lasting relationship, but rather a start to healing what they had in season 1. And that's just all the stuff from Cait's side of the relationship, which will flesh out more in her own video. But in some sense, and this is my personal opinion, I thought it was kind of worse from Vi's side. As we mentioned before, when Vi first met Cait, she didn't give a damn about her. But because of the conditions of her release from Stillwater, she needed to make sure Caitlyn feels like she's useful and not trying to get away from her. Though I wouldn't blame her if this was her attempt at running away. Vi isn't dumb. She's got street smarts. She knows how and when to be stoic, flirtatious, and sassy to gain control of the situation. These aren't Vi's genuine feelings, but a means to survive in an environment where it's each for themselves. Vi needed to string Cait along, whilst also getting her out of her hair when she's getting personal, because Vi doesn't trust Cait just yet.
This only works if we can trust each other.
Case in point. So, she finds a way of naturally splitting them up without there being a chance of Caitlyn rejecting her proposal. Give her a plan, the confidence, and the intro to get it done. And well, it flusters Caitlyn, which we, including Vi, quickly figure out why. This is the moment that Caitlyn starts falling for Vi. Probably because she's never been flirted with like that before. And the more of Vi's real qualities and history starts to reveal itself, Caitlyn falls for her more. Because, to Caitlyn's credit, she's great at piecing things together and building a story. A story of a brave, strong woman with a big heart. When Caitlin saves Vi's life, her preconceptions of her being a daft pilty shatter. She saved her thrice, despite her being a supposed fugitive and beneath her. Caitlin treated Vi like an equal on the job, a life worth saving, a voice worth listening to, which isn't something Vi had previously experienced. Throughout her life, Vi has worked to become an equal to her enemy, so that
This city's gonna respect us.
hence focusing her life enhancing her street smarts and physical strength. Her allies had always been people she looked up to or doted on. Even Milo and Clagger that were around Vi's age looked up to her. In every relationship in her life, there had been a power dynamic, either built by the environment or herself. So being treated like this was new to Vi, and she needed to figure out whether this was real or if Cait was just a savvy pilty. But she was also dealing with her home being destroyed, Silco's cronies on their tail, and a nasty stab wound at the same time. The girl is multitasking with her psyche like crazy. She decides that hiding out in her childhood home in Zorn's slums was the best place for it, thinking that Silco's goons wouldn't venture down there, and more importantly, find a piece of her past that could give her energy to get up and fight. Sadly for Vi, Silco already had his hands on this place. More specifically, his eye, and the people were suffering for it, including her. There was a lot of hurt, both physical and emotional, with the only person being there being a stranger. Cait was right. If Vi wanted to find Powder, she needed assistance from this cop, at least till she's on her feet again. This is where I get to my problem with CaitVi from Vi's POV. Number one, which I alluded to before, Vi doesn't actually have an understanding for equality. So when she feels accepted and understood by Caitlin, gratitude and guilt play a huge role in Vi accepting or doing things for Caitlin to keep her, which is exploited later and forms a power dynamic that she is too quick to accept. The second pertains to this scene. Cait cleaning her wound and further her words remind Vi of her father, Vander. Then she hallucinates Cait as her mother, and I don't blame her. There is a striking resemblance. Then, when Vi and Cait are chilling in Caitlin's room, she says that it reminds her of Powder. So for Vi to develop physical attraction to Cait, it's pretty Freudian. Romance by the end, I buy. Totally works. But physical? It looks one-sided to me. With Vi's reciprocity, love language jumping in the finale. Vi had a genuine reason to be grateful to Cait, starting from when Cait puts herself in danger to save Vi. But she quickly reciprocated that by saving her from Silco. The to's and fro's between them, which steadily build their relationship, finally come to a climax when Vi witnesses Cait's true character, her dedication, integrity, empathy, and honesty. The relationship moves out of the tit-for-tat kind of sitch to a true admiration for who they were.
It's been real, Cupcake.
And now we've established Vi's key motivations and beliefs, which she holds onto throughout the show. The girl's stubborn. It takes a while to truly change her, but it is possible. That's what we're going to be exploring in part 2. So stay tuned. Be brave, be happy, and be kind, and we'll catch you all in the next one.